My name is Shen King Meng. I have been imprisoned in a small courtyard since birth. By my side there is only a maid and a nameless mother. Day after day, my mother always whispers in my ear about the female general in my father's heart. What man doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Only your father is bewitched by that vixen. She is not easy to please. You must be obedient. Find a way to please your father. Help your mother gain some status. Understand? What an unlucky girl. Why are you a girl? Just because I am a girl. My mother thinks that I am useless, unable to keep my father's heart. Therefore, she thinks of all kinds of ways to torture me. Sometimes she pushes me into a cold lake in the middle of winter. Watches me get a high fever before sending someone to call my father. Sometimes she intentionally lets me get lost, forcing my father to mobilize troops to look for me. Sometimes, he forbade me from eating or drinking, leaving me so hungry that I fainted, then told my father to go find a doctor to treat me. However, my father never showed up even once. In fact, to avoid trouble, he even asked to go to the battlefield and did not return for many months. That day, when he heard that my father had returned to the palace, my mother immediately used her old tricks. She poured cold water on me, leaving me soaked from head to toe. Then she sat there, silently waiting. Her hand kept touching my forehead to check. When an incense stick had burned out, she excitedly shouted, "Shu Hua, quickly go call the old master. Tell him that Meng Meng has a high fever that won't go down." Only at times like this would my mother call me, Meng Meng. In the past, even if my father wasn't too keen, he would still send a doctor to treat me. But today, he no longer paid any attention to me, because the female general Meng Wu, who did not follow conventional etiquette, had come to propose marriage. Mother squeezed my hand, but not because she was worried that I would not be treated, but because she was angry. Angry that father did not come, that he did not take her into his heart. Her fingernails dug deep into my flesh. Fox spirit. Bitch. That woman dares to openly appear before the world. As a daughter, she still dares to come to propose marriage. I looked at my mother weakly, my voice hoarse. "Mother, save me." She glared at me. "Shut up. If you were not useless, I would not have to suffer like this." With that, she pulled me out of bed. "Go. Come with me to find your father." In the middle of the freezing winter, I was wearing thin clothes and had a high fever. She dragged me down the small path, then pushed me down in front of my father. Father kicked me hard, his voice full of hatred towards mother. "What do you want again?" Mother started to cry, make a fuss, and cry miserably. I lay weakly on the side of the road, my mind gradually becoming hazy. Before I passed out, I saw a woman wearing bright red clothes, rushing towards me. It was a face that was too radiant, too beautiful. At that moment, I was held in her arms. Before I closed my eyes, I heard father's worried voice, "Awu, why are you here?" This fever had made me lose my voice. When I woke up, I found that I could no longer make a sound and was no longer in the familiar room. Before my eyes was an old, dilapidated wooden house, the cold wind whistling through every crack, making me shiver non-stop. My spirit, which had just recovered a little, began to feel tired and sleepy again. I saw mother dragging an old woman in. As soon as I entered, her eyes were fixed on me, looking me up and down and saying, "This child is too skinny. At most he's only worth 2 taels of silver." Mother hesitated. "Isn't it too cheap? All children are like that. They'll get fat after a while." In the cold wind, I clearly heard my mother bargaining with her. The main item was me. I suddenly shivered, and was so scared that I became sober. I couldn't believe my eyes. I looked at my mother. There was only one thought in my head: even if I had to earn my own living, even if I had to starve on the streets, I still didn't want to become a slave. Gritting my teeth, I looked towards the rotten window. While the matchmaker was giving my mother money, I quickly got up and jumped out the window. "Shen King Meng." I heard my mother's angry shout behind me. Immediately after that, I heard the footsteps of 2 people chasing me through the window. I knew I couldn't escape them, so relying on my small body, I resolutely crawled into a dog hole. This dog hole led to the main street. My chest was in great pain, but when I crawled out of the hole, I ran for my life regardless. After I got out, I started wandering around and became a beggar. My clothes were torn, my face was dirty. Day after day, I was bullied by others. Because I was mute and young, they took out their anger on me even more. I don't know how many days I went through like that. From the cold winter to spring, then from spring to summer, and from late summer to another winter. Spring passed and autumn came. My body gradually collapsed. When I could no longer find food, I collapsed on the ground, waiting for help. At that moment, a group of beggars dragged a little girl to the end of the alley. The little girl was wearing a bright red dress. She looked about 4 or 5 years old. The beggars held her tightly by the shoulders, her face full of tears. "Let me go. I want to go home." She struggled weakly, but it was no use. I slowly crawled up. These beggars often did immoral things like human trafficking. This little girl would definitely fall into that situation. My fate was miserable, so it was fine for me to run away. But I couldn't let a rich young lady like her fall into the same miserable situation as me. It would be better to use my life to save her. That way at least my runaway would have meaning. So, while they weren't paying attention, I picked up a large rock and threw it hard at one of them. Blood splattered on my face. I pushed the little girl away, then hugged the legs of the other two tightly. "Run." I opened my mouth, but only made hoarse sounds, like scratching on a wooden door. The little girl was stunned for a moment, as if she understood my mouth shape, then turned around and ran out of the alley. "Damn it, what's going on?" The beggar whose head I threw at him turned around and kicked me hard. The terrible pain made my mind more clear, but I still clung to them, refusing to let go. Countless punches and kicks continuously fell on me. I clearly felt my internal organs rolling. The taste of blood filled my mouth. I saw the beggar chasing after the little girl. Just as he was about to catch up with her, suddenly at the end of the alley appeared a group of people who looked like guards. They raised their swords, cutting off the beggar's arm. Blood gushed out. The beggar screamed miserably. I saw the little girl crying and running towards me. Behind her was a woman wearing a long red dress. She walked out of the light, then hugged me tightly. When I woke up, the bed was filled with the faint scent of sandalwood. The soft blanket wrapped around me. The dirt on my body had long been washed away. But every time I moved, my whole body ached to the marrow. I observed my surroundings, feeling that this place was somewhat familiar, until someone pushed the door open and entered. I raised my head to look. I saw the little girl I had met before. She was holding a woman's hand. Both of them were wearing bright red clothes. It was that red color that would later forcefully enter my life. Pulling me out of the dark swamp, the little girl jumped in front of me, happily saying, "Big sister, thank you for saving me." My hazy eyes left the little girl, turning to the beautiful woman standing behind. With just one look, I recognized who she was. It was the famous female general in the capital. My father's white moonlight, Meng Wu Yu. Even though she was a female general, she still had a beautiful face, a graceful figure, and a powerful and majestic gait. I suddenly remembered what my mother had said, and I cowered in fear, retreating to the end of the bed. "What is your name?" Meng Wu lowered her head to look at me, muttering to herself, "Why does it feel so familiar?" "A Yao. Go out and tell someone to bring food to big sister." "A Yao? No, actually Shen Yao," happily replied, then turned and ran out. "So, I've been wandering outside for almost 5 years. Even father's new child has grown up this much. In just a few more years, I'll be old enough to wear a hairpin." While I was lost in thought, Meng Wu grabbed my hand. My whole body trembled, and I softly uttered each word in a hoarse voice. I thank you." Seeing that Meng Wu didn't recognize me, I selfishly didn't want to report my name, because I was afraid that if she found out about my identity, she would kick me out. Therefore, I could only keep repeating my thanks. "Oh, this child," Meng Wu sighed, her eyes filled with pity as she looked at me. "If you don't have a home, do you want me to adopt you? Be my daughter. No one will dare to bully you in the future. You can learn martial arts from a Yao and me. Girls with martial arts skills will not be bullied." I was stunned. I clearly understood every word, but when I put them together, why did I feel like I couldn't understand them? "About your voice, I asked the doctor. They said that as long as you rest well, you can still recover." She patted my head, smiling gently and friendly. "A Yao has always wanted an older sister. Do you want to go from being her life-saving benefactor to being her older sister?" At that moment, Shen Yao pushed the door open and entered. Hearing Meng Wu's last words, She told the maid to put the bowl of medicine and hot porridge on the table. Then she quickly ran over and grabbed my hand, her eyes shining brightly. Sister, do you agree to become our family? I agreed. I didn't know if this decision was right or not. I also didn't know if my father would recognize me and chase me away after he returned. But I lingered on the gentleness of this moment. I didn't want to let go. I was held in Meng Wu's arms, drinking porridge sip by sip. Shen Yao standing beside me teasing me. She told me so many interesting stories. Father treated her so well. Mother once said that because I was a girl, father didn't like me, but Shen Yao was also a girl. Yet in her stories, father always pampered and loved her, as if he wanted to lift her up to the sky. But I wasn't jealous. I really liked the mother and daughter. Because my injuries were too severe, my body was inherently weak. I had just woken up a little, and I fell asleep again. Meng Wu gently closed the door, leading Shen Yao away. In my daze, I heard the window open, someone sneaking in. When I opened my eyes, a hand covered my mouth. That person whispered in my ear, "Shush. Meng, it really is you." I opened my eyes wide, immediately recognizing her. It was the daughter of the Prime Minister's residence next door, Miss Celine. When I was still in the residence, she often brought all kinds of snacks to visit me. She was my only friend in this life. Today, I passed by and saw that the person that Madame Shen was holding in her arms looked very similar to you. So I came. Her eyes turned red when she saw the wound on my body. Where have you been all these years? Why didn't you come to find me? What did your evil mother do to you? I wanted to speak up to explain, but I could only make meaningless, hoo-hoo, sounds. Celine was stunned. Meng, your voice. She stopped, but tears were streaming down her face. I can't stay long, even though I don't know why you were brought back. But if Madame Shen and Shen Yao bully you. She took off the jade pendant around her neck and stuffed it into my hand. Take this. If anything happens, come find me. Understand? Before I could react, there was a knock on the door. Miss, the master wants to see you. Are you awake yet? Celine looked at me, intending to say something but then bit her lip and turned to leave. I put the jade pendant on my person, then gently rang the bell that Meng Wu had prepared for me. The maid came in and helped me wash my face and comb my hair. Looking in the mirror, my gaunt face made me feel extremely uneasy. But what had to happen had to happen. Under the maid's guidance, I pushed the door open and walked into the room, lowering my head. As soon as I entered, Meng Wu took my hand. She patted my head and said softly, "Come, raise your head and look at your father. He heard that you saved Yao Yao and wants to reward you." My whole body trembled and I wanted to hide behind her. But my father had already stepped closer. He squatted down and placed his large hand on my shoulder, smiling and saying, "Let's get acquainted. From now on, we'll all be family. Don't worry." This was the first time my father had spoken to me so gently. It was also the first time he had touched me. Before, my father had even been too lazy to look at me. I carefully raised my head and used all my strength to say in a weak, hoarse voice, "Father." Perhaps it was because I was thin and my appearance had changed. Or perhaps it had been 4 or 5 years since we last met. My father didn't recognize me at first. But very quickly, the hand that was on my shoulder dropped. The smile on his face gradually disappeared, and his eyes turned cold. He stared at me and coldly asked, "Shen King Meng?" My whole body suddenly turned cold. The hand that was gripping the hem of Meng Wu's skirt tightened even more. Meng Wu hugged me, surprised by her husband's change in attitude. But when she heard my name, she suddenly understood, and lowered her head to look at me. "Didn't you follow your mother? Why did you come back? Do you want money, or do you want to shamelessly stick around here?" Father's voice was cold, carrying hostility and scrutiny. "Where is your mother? Tell her to come out and take you away." I shook my head, my eyes filled with pleading. I wanted to say that my mother didn't need me anymore. She was going to sell me. I wanted to say that my father wouldn't abandon me. I would be very good. But my throat was hoarse. Therefore, I could only let out a cry of pain and despair. Meng Wu tightened her arms around me, and shouted loudly, "Shen Yu, why are you so angry with a child?" She protected me, and Shen Yao also held my arm tightly. Shen Yao was very well educated. Even though she knew that I was her father's other child, she did not show any dissatisfaction. On the contrary, she hugged me and kept comforting me. Sister, don't cry. Mother and I will protect you. No one will dare to harm you. Father frowned even more when he heard that. Yao Yao. Don't touch her. Shen Yao immediately protected me, angrily saying, Father, why are you yelling at sister? She pulled my hand, intending to lead me to the backyard. Let's go, sister. Let's go play. Don't pay attention to father anymore. Shen King Meng. Father raised his voice, took big strides, pulled me towards him, then turned to say to Meng Wu, Wu, you don't understand that woman's mind. You've been out there for too long. How could you possibly understand the schemes in this backyard? Enough, Meng Wu said sternly, her delicate eyebrows furrowed tightly, facing her father. Although I'm not often in the backyard, that doesn't mean I don't know anything. Look at her. She's a teenager but looks like a 7 or 8-year-old child. She's as skinny as a stick. Hungry every day, no matter what her mother's scheme is. It's her business. It has nothing to do with this child. I ask you. Isn't she your daughter? Seeing your child like this, can't you feel any compassion? Meng Wu stared at her father, almost biting her lips until they bled. Give him to me. I want to adopt him. Father squeezed my hand tightly, causing my entire skinny arm to tremble in pain. But I didn't dare to make a single sound. Even so, father didn't soften his heart because of my obedience. He pushed me towards the housekeeper, coldly ordering, take him away. Find that woman and bring him back. I was thrown out again. Meng Wu and Shen Yao were stopped by someone else. I heard father's cold voice. He has a mother. You don't need to worry. The carriage curtain was lowered. I vaguely heard the arguing between Meng Wu and father. Then there was the sound of the coachman shouting loudly. The horse neighed, dragging me back to the place I had run away from 5 years ago. No, I didn't want to. I didn't want to go back. A despair enveloped my chest, spreading more and more. I looked out from the small window of the carriage, saw the bustling streets, saw the noisy crowds, saw the circus parade passing by. Then gradually, the crowd became thinner. We passed through a wild forest. In front of me was the place that terrified me. I clenched my teeth, then jumped out of the carriage. The feeling of rolling on the ground was not pleasant at all. The tiny stones dug deep into my flesh. I could clearly hear my own painful groans. But I couldn't just lie here. I clenched the jade pendant in my hand. I had to go find Celine. Even if I had to go to the Prime Minister's residence to be a lowly maid, I would accept it. I dragged my wounded body all day long. Finally, the next day, at dawn, I arrived at the Prime Minister's residence. I handed the jade pendant in my hand to the page boy. Before I could say another word, I collapsed. When I woke up, Celine was applying medicine to me. My whole body was almost completely bare. Celine's eyes were red, looking at me angrily. From now on, if you still don't know how to cherish your body, this young lady will no longer pay attention to you. A warm feeling suddenly rose in my heart. I smiled weakly at her, just as I was about to reach out to apply the medicine myself. The maid outside the door pushed the door open and entered. Eldest Miss, Madame Meng of the Shangshu Mansion requests to see Miss Shen. The old lady has already brought someone to wait in the main hall. Celine frowned, still lowering her head to apply the medicine for me. The maid waited for a long time without seeing a response. So she urged again, Eldest Miss. Seeing that Celine was about to get angry, I put my hand on her shoulder and shook my head to signal her. Then, I struggled to sit up and get out of bed. Meng Wu led Shen Yao to quietly wait. As soon as she saw me come out, Meng Wu immediately stood up, intending to run over and hug me. I reflexively stepped back and was hugged by the old lady from the Tiet family. This old lady was very good to me. Her face was full of pity. She looked at Meng Wu and said without any respect, you saw it. Our entire Tiet family really likes this child. If you don't need him, then don't force him. Our family will keep him. Meng Wu remained silent for a long time without saying anything. But Shen Yao ran over and intended to grab my hand. Sister. I looked at them, suddenly not knowing whether I should feel lucky or unlucky. My biological mother threw me away to a matchmaker, causing me to wander for 5 years. My biological father despised me, and had never looked me in the face since I was born. However, my father's new mistress took good care of me. Her daughter also sincerely considered me an older sister. The entire Zhu family also treated me very well. Tears welled up in the corners of my eyes. I let go of old Madame Zhu's hand, and slowly walked out of her arms. After standing firmly, I bowed to the old lady. A weak, "Thank you," came out from my hoarse throat. Then I slowly walked to Shen Yao's side, took her hand, and together we stood in front of Meng Wu. Meng Wu saw the determination and longing in my eyes, and smiled. Meng, I was not mistaken. After leaving the Zhu family home, Meng Wu led me to receive the clothes she had ordered for me. The soft silk felt like I was soaking in a gentle bath. I gently stroked the well-fitting clothes, tears welling up in the corners of my eyes. It was said that on the first day she brought me home, she had someone make clothes for me. Unfortunately, before I could give them to her, everything happened. Sitting in the soft, comfortable carriage, I pursed my lips and said softly, "Thank you, no need to thank me." Meng Wu patted my head, smiling gently. "You were originally Shen Yu's daughter. You don't need me to show up. You can live at home. From tomorrow on, we will recuperate together, okay?" I looked at her, nodding gently, using all my strength. I tried to smile. Meng Wu wasn't just talking. Every day, she personally brewed medicine for me, gently comforting me. "Be good. Meng, this medicine isn't bitter. If it's too bitter, I'll give you a dried plum. Okay?" My nose stung. I shook my head, then picked up the bowl of medicine and drank it all in one gulp. No matter how bitter the medicine was, it wasn't as bitter as what I had endured before. Now, with all the favor I received, the sweetness in my heart had overwhelmed all the suffering. Even though my father still hated me, he had never appeared before me, but I was already satisfied. That night, Shen Yao pushed the door open and pulled me to Meng Wu's room. The young woman was leaning against the headboard. When she saw us coming, she patted the spot next to her, signaling us to sit on the bed. Shen Yao was used to it, and climbed onto the bed naturally. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling a little nervous. Meng Wu carried me to bed, wrapped her arms around both of us, and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'll tell you a bedtime story today." "What bedtime story?" I looked at Meng Wu wonderingly. She leaned down and kissed my forehead, causing my face to turn red. "It is said that, a long time ago, there was a little beggar girl who picked up trash every day to fill her stomach. Her mother, she drank herself to death, and gambled away her wealth, let alone raising a child. She couldn't even take care of herself. But that little beggar girl never gave up. She picked up clothes and food that others threw away. Not only did she struggle to survive until adulthood, to reach marriageable age, but she also worked hard to find a very good job. You see, even if father doesn't care, mother doesn't love, as long as one doesn't give in to fate, wants to live, one will definitely find one's own path." Her gentle voice rang in my ears. I vaguely heard it and didn't fully understand it. Then, Meng Wu's hand gently placed itself on top of my head. Meng, a person's origin does not determine the destiny. Even if you are alone, you can still live gloriously. Right, but now, you are no longer alone. As she spoke, she took Shen Yao's and mine. The three of us placed our hands on top of each other. "Now, you have me, you have Yao, you will definitely live a happier life." The warm light of the candle shone on us, stretching out endless warm colors. In my heart, I quietly made up my mind. "Shen King Meng, you must become a good person. Can't let down Lady Shen's hopes." After a period of recuperation, my spirit gradually recovered significantly. Meng Wu often pulled Shen Yao and I together to practice martial arts. But the moves she taught us seemed quite strange. I had seen the guards use decisive and ruthless moves, and just one move was enough to take the opponent's life. However, what Meng Wu taught us was not for the purpose of taking lives, but for self-protection. She told us that this was a self-defense technique. When in danger, it could help save our lives. Once we had mastered the basic self-defense moves, she would teach us other things. She said that it was not a bad thing for a girl to know a little martial arts. She said that only your enemies would hope that you would be weak and unarmed. She said that being a noble lady and knowing a little martial arts were not contradictory. I kept all her words in my heart, and whenever I had free time, I would ponder them. Later, Celine also joined our group. She learned self-defense techniques with us, and together we pondered the meaning of Meng Wu's words. In the end, we came to the conclusion, women can also protect themselves. Women are no less than men. When she heard our conclusion, Meng Wu smiled. That's right, I have made great contributions at the frontier. How many men can compare to me? She spoke while munching on melon seeds. Her demeanor relaxed and unrestrained. I gradually understood why my father only had her in his heart. Meng Wu was not only stunningly beautiful, but also exceptionally talented. She was no match for her in the arts of music, chess, calligraphy, painting, and martial arts. She was intelligent, alert, and extremely open-minded and strong. She was completely different from other women. She could be a free eagle spreading its wings in the sky. But she could also be a beautiful peony blooming in this land. Meng Wu stroked my head, as if lost in thought. After a long while, she sighed. If there is a chance, I hope there will be more women who are as sane as me. Not imprisoned in the boudoirs, living as if dependent on men. They should also have their own lives. My body began to change, my figure gradually growing taller. My voice also gradually recovered to that of a normal person. Although it cannot be said to be good, but at least I no longer have to say a few sentences and then become hoarse for 2 days. Meng Wu still regularly told us bedtime stories. She said, in an era far away from us, women could enter the court to be officials, could teach, could divorce and live their own lives. Looking at our confused eyes, she sighed again. At first, when she told the story, she was full of enthusiasm and vitality. But now, she began to sigh repeatedly, her eyes shining with longing. I didn't know why she sighed, but I instinctively felt sad for her. I thought it was all my father's fault. Rumors were rife in the capital. Some said that he had changed his mind, and that he had someone else outside. Meng Wu's face showed obvious fatigue, but she still took good care of us, sent us to school, and cooked for us. However, this peace did not last long. Father brought his woman home. Meng Wu sat on the chair, her head pounding. She waved her hand at her father. Do whatever you want. I really can't control you anymore. In just a few short years, the man who once said he would never marry anyone but her was now holding hands with another woman. He once said he would take care of her for the rest of his life. He even warned Meng Wu, "Oh Wu, you two will live together from now on. You are not allowed to make things difficult for her." Meng Wu sighed again. When my father passed by me, he stopped, seemingly surprised that I had grown so much. Perhaps the events that happened 10 years ago were too distant, so his hatred for me had lessened. At this moment, he patted my shoulder and said with a smile, Meng will become more and more beautiful as you grow up. When you reach the age to wear a hairpin, your father will definitely find you a husband to your liking. But he didn't know that I was no longer the little girl who longed for my father's love 5 or 10 years ago. I shook his hand off and ran towards Meng Wu. Mother, don't worry, even without father, Yao and I will still be filial to you. Meng Wu's eyes, which were looking down, suddenly lit up. Meng, what did you just call me? I pursed my lips, a little nervous. Mother. Meng Wu happily replied, hugging me tightly. The sadness on her face was replaced by happiness, as if the emotions just now were no longer important. I hugged her thin shoulders. Tears also fell. When I fought with Meng Wu and defeated her, she suddenly laughed out loud. Very good, Meng. I really did not see wrongly in you. At this moment, I was just like her in the past, outstandingly talented, beautiful in appearance, and my reputation was spreading far and wide in the capital. Father also began to value me more, even more than the other children born from the concubines later on. Shen Yao was truly happy for me, but she couldn't help but worry. Sister, tomorrow is your hairpin day. I don't want you to be married off so quickly. Influenced by Meng Wu, we had long since ceased to be bound by the ideas of the times. I pinched her cheeks, smiling confidently, even if father is determined to marry me off. So what, can't I run away with mother and sister? And me too. Celine's voice rang out from behind. She ran over with a smile. Why didn't you guys invite me along? We looked at each other, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. The hairpin day quickly arrived. Father wanted to marry me to the legitimate son of General Yang. I flatly refused in front of everyone, looking up and down at General Yang, mockingly, an uneducated person with only an empty reputation. How can he be worthy of me? As soon as he finished speaking, the entire audience changed their expressions. Father angrily slammed the table and stood up. What are you doing? What kind of decency is this? I smiled, threw the dagger in my hand at General Yang, and shattered the teacup in front of him. He was so scared that he fell to the ground. I curled my lips coldly. I won't marry someone like him. My face was calm, but a memory flashed through my mind. When Mother stormed into the mansion alone to propose to Father, she was probably as majestic as I was now. The second day after the hairpin ceremony, Mother disappeared, leaving us only a letter. Meng Meng, you've grown up, now you're able to protect yourself. Mother can rest assured to leave Yao Yao to you. I'm really tired. I don't want to spend the rest of my life locked up in this Shen mansion. And I don't want to face my father's face every day. He thought he could use the years of affection between us to tie me down. Use this building to lock me up. But that's not true. Men are just guests passing through our lives. When they are no longer valuable, they leave. The only thing I'm not at ease with is you and Yao Yao. Now, I will travel all over the beautiful mountains and rivers of my motherland, enjoying the rest of my life. Mother will come back to visit you. The pigeons will help us communicate. Don't worry, I have prepared enough travel expenses. Everything is fine. The rest of the dowry and the money I earned over the years are in the vault. Mother will give you the key. Use that money to do whatever you want. Signed, Meng W.U. The handwriting was still graceful and strong like a flying dragon and dancing phoenix. Shen Yao leaned against my chest, sobbing. I stroked her head, comforting her, but in my heart I was happy for my mother. She was still herself. The eagle was never imprisoned by anyone. With the money my mother left, I established a shelter. This place took in homeless girls, divorced women with no place to go, and even old women who were near death and had no one to take care of them. My father called me crazy, but I didn't care. Shen Yao and I started helping these women find a way to live. I spent a lot of money to invite embroiderers, dancers, teachers, cooks, martial artists. In short, I invited talented people in all fields. Based on each person's ability, I helped them learn. The girls and women who wanted to learn to read and write studied with the masters. From those who didn't know a single word, they gradually became able to write fluent sentences and speak fluently. Those who wanted to learn handicrafts followed embroiderers to learn embroidery, making items to sell. The money earned was used to maintain the operation of this special school. Those who loved to cook were enthusiastic about creating new dishes, starting with street stalls, gradually renting out wine houses, and thanks to their talents, the reputation of these women's restaurants spread far and wide. Even the dancers and singers who were once despised became respected female teachers. They taught everything they learned to their students and together opened formal performance venues. Martial arts were compulsory for everyone. I always remembered my mother's words, "It is never a bad thing for a girl to know martial arts to defend herself." These women were all miserable, helpless people, who had endured enough coldness and contempt from the world, so they had a strong desire in their hearts. They wanted to prove to the world that they were not useless. On the contrary, they could do better than men. After only 3 years, our school grew stronger and stronger, saving more and more women. More and more people became aware of the problem. Men felt threatened, and together they submitted a petition to the emperor, demanding that we be punished. But they don't know that the emperor is also a human being. And humans always weigh the pros and cons. In the past 3 years, I have given half of the school's income to the emperor. Everything we do has the emperor's tacit approval. But those conservative officials don't understand. Or perhaps they don't believe it. They don't believe that women can be so talented. They don't believe that they can be surpassed. I stood in the study, bowing respectfully. Your Majesty, this servant has come here for the country, and also for the thousands and thousands of women in the world. The emperor looked at me, not saying a word. The borders have been continuously invaded by foreign races in recent years. This servant requests to lead 3,000 female soldiers to fight and defeat the Huns. I took out a small square of rice cake. As for provisions, this servant has an important matter to report. This is a new food that we have invented. Easy to carry, can be preserved for up to 6 months. Whether eaten with water or dry, it can fill the stomach and replenish energy. After saying that, I presented several memorials, reporting to Your Majesty, recently natural and man-made disasters have occurred one after another. This servant cannot bear to see Your Majesty suffer because of this. So I have written several solutions. I hope Your Majesty will review it. I held the cake in one hand, presented the memorial in the other, knelt on the ground, my heart pounding. Quickly, bring these two things up here for me to see. The emperor was always calm, but at this moment he could not contain his excitement. He ordered the servant to take it from my hand, anxiously breaking off a corner of the cake. The eunuch who was testing the poison quickly stepped forward and tasted a piece. His eyes lit up. Your Majesty, this thing is not poisonous. The emperor also broke off a piece and put it in his mouth. The sweet and refreshing taste of glutinous rice melted on the tip of his tongue, making him radiant with satisfaction. Then, he bent down to look at the memorials. He was a little surprised. A woman's handwriting can be so graceful and free. After saying that, he continued to read, and gradually became absorbed. I don't know how long I knelt, until my knees went numb. My back bent down and I started to tremble. Finally, the emperor spoke. Shen King Meng, there is a goddess. My forehead was covered in cold sweat, afraid that this fickle emperor would blame me. After all, there had never been a precedent for a woman intervening in politics. But I still wanted to try. If I failed, I would bear the consequences myself. But what if I succeeded? I wanted to open a path for thousands, tens of thousands of women in this world. Time passed by every second, every minute. When I was about to collapse, the emperor suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha, very good. I didn't expect women to be so talented. Su Jin Sheng, immediately draft an imperial edict and appoint these people to the court. Pass on my imperial edict. From now on, open the court to female officials. Women can participate in the imperial examinations along with men, and whoever passes will be treated the same as men. I startled and raised my head, unable to believe my eyes when I saw the emperor. He waved at me. Stand up. I have approved your request. I appoint you as the flying cavalry general. Lead the female soldiers to the border, and win glory for the country. 2 years later, in the battle outside the border, I led the female army to a great victory back to the court. On the streets, there were no longer only women wearing coarse cloth, but instead countless female officials wearing imperial robes and dragonfly wing hats. From the windows of the taverns, exquisitely made-up dancers bowed, smiling brightly, and threw flowers towards us. The female waiters from the restaurants ran around handing out cakes in lieu of congratulations. The street scene was filled with excitement, with men and women crowded around, and from afar, the students in the school also raised their hands to wave to us. I saw many familiar faces standing on both sides of the street, their faces beaming with smiles. Sister, suddenly, I heard Shen Yao's voice calling out. Raising my head, I saw her leaning half her body out of the second-floor window of the tavern, waving enthusiastically at me, and next to her, a person was sitting quietly, a middle-aged woman. Mother, my breath seemed to stop, followed by a wave of joy. I looked at Meng Wu. She smiled and nodded at me, her eyes filled with admiration. I also waved enthusiastically towards them. Mother, I did it, I did it. That night, Mother whispered that she wished that there would be more women in this world like her or even more than her. I have done it, Mother. You have witnessed this glorious era. In this world, women no longer exist solely dependent on men. They are like Mother, like me, like Shen Yao. First be yourself, then be a woman.